On today's podcast, we sit down with Kim Frankiewicz, Global Head of Creative at Concord Music Publishing and one of the most respected voices in the publishing world. Kim opens up about the massive changes in music publishing, from the impact of streaming royalties to why the modern songwriter and artist need to be more proactive than ever. We dive into the essential qualities she looks for, creatively and professionally, when signing new talent, and why having the right team behind you can make or break a career. Kim also shares her unique insight on the rise of female leadership in music publishing, the challenges facing today's creators, and what holds some artists back from true success. If you're serious about making it in today's music business, this conversation is an absolute must. Music Business Insiders, are you ready?
Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Rich Ezra and Eric Knight. Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's show, we have a very special guest, Kim Frankiewicz, the Global Head of Creative at Concord Music Publishing. Kim is one of the most respected and influential figures in the world of music publishing, guiding a worldwide A&R team and shaping the careers of songwriters and artists across the globe. In this raw, insightful conversation, we dive deep into the evolving landscape of music publishing, from big changes in royalty income for writers and producers, to the critical importance of management teams, to why artists need to be more proactive and self-sufficient than ever before. Kim shares her criteria for discovering and signing new talent, her perspective on gender parity in the industry, and the obstacles that face today's emerging songwriters, artists, and producers. If you're serious about your music career, whether you're an artist, songwriter, manager, or just curious about the business side of things, this is an episode you absolutely can't miss. Kim offers not only practical advice, but also inspiration for those navigating the challenges of the modern music industry. So get ready to take notes and stay tuned. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Insiders! Are you an aspiring musician, artist, band, or future music business professional looking to take your career to the next level? Well, look no further. At MUBUTV, we offer personalized career counseling and coaching designed specifically for folks like you.
Imagine having both of us by your side, guiding you through every step of your music journey. Our sessions are tailored to meet your unique needs, focusing on critical aspects of your music career, such as refining your songs, defining your artist story, identifying your target audience, and enhancing your social media presence, just to name a few.
Whether you're just starting out or looking to elevate your existing career, we've got you covered. Our comprehensive approach ensures you get insights on everything from live shows to branding and marketing strategies. We understand that every artist is unique. That's why our coaching is personalized just for you.
And here's the best part. We offer flexible coaching packages that fit any budget. Choose from individual sessions ranging from 30 to 90 minutes, or save with our discounted 4-session packages. Experience custom sessions designed to enhance your music career, with opportunities for greater savings when you choose bundled sessions. Investing in your musical journey has never been more accessible.
Imagine the clarity and direction you'll gain after just one session. The feedback on your songs, the strategies to grow your audience, and the confidence to perform live, all tailored just for you.
So why wait? Don't let uncertainty hold you back. Join us for your free 15-minute discovery call at book.mubutv.com for a transformative coaching experience that will elevate your music career. That's book.mubutv.com.
Hi, this is Jennifer Smith, Music Supervisor at Rat Dance Party, and you're listening to the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured guest is none other than the great Kim Frankiewicz. And this was a very, very interesting conversation for many reasons. You know, Kim, I had the pleasure of doing an interview with her just prior to this at Muse Expo, where she was on a panel. And it was so interesting, you know, hearing some of her history, where she started many years ago in Australia with Chris Murphy, who was the, you know, legendary manager of In Excess.
Right.
And she worked for him for many years, and he was the one that guided her into music publishing. And she has become become, one
powerhouse.
of the, not only a powerhouse, but one of the leading executives on the global front of music publishing. One of the most interesting things that she talked about, and that, a lot of people don't really necessarily think of, but you hear a lot about it, is the female representation in music publishing on the top creative level is much more extensive in music publishing, perhaps, than it is in A&R. And I asked her about that, and she speaks about that, where that, when you look at her, when you look at Jody Gerson, when you look at Carrie Ann Marshall, who runs Warner Chappell, Jody, who runs Universal. I mean, these are all, Kim, who runs global creative for Concord. These are all very, very powerful women at the top of their game, and many other senior executives who aren't necessarily the CEOs or, like Kim, who are very, very involved in the creative aspect of music publishing, and how that kind of element fosters creativity and fosters a sense of collaboration. So that was a very interesting point as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. And also one of the other areas that I thought was, and this is an obvious one that we've talked about on the show quite a bit, but she talks about today's industry expects artists and writers to be more self-sufficient. Hustling and a proactive approach are more important than ever. And we can't stress this enough. We've talked about this on the show several times about you have to get it to like a 40 or 50 or 60 before somebody's going to really take you seriously and say, let's take a look at what's going on here.
Yes. And you know why that is? It's because somebody's looking at you and saying, are you worth the time, effort, and energy?
Exactly.
Or are we, it's not just about your talent.
Right.
There's a lot of very talented people. Clive Davis, who I worked for years, used to say, if all it took was a spectacular voice, my God, every person who had a spectacular voice would be a star.
Right.
He said it's maybe one of 15 qualities that you need.
Yeah.
And the element you're talking about is more important now than ever. And it's one of the philosophies and driving forces behind the creation of MUBUTV.
Yeah.
Is that very factor.
And I don't fault the record companies for wanting that in this day and age, because it really shows them, okay, these people are going to go out there. I'm not going to want it more than them. If I'm going to put $150 million into this career from now for the next 5-10 years, you better damn well believe that they want to have that sewn up as far as their investment of who they're putting, who they're signing up with. So with that, insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation from Muse Expo 2025 with Kim Frankiewicz.
Kim, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for doing the show. I want to start out with a question based on your experience and where you're at now. Do you think we're in a healthy period in the music business today?
I do, very much so. I really feel that since COVID, there's now some amazing, great, real artists coming through. And yes, it's very, very exciting times. And it's coming through from all parts of the world, which is even more exciting.
Very much so.
Yes.
That's amazing. Kim, thank you so much for joining us on the show. You've noted that the evolving role of publishers, particularly in collaboration with labels and managers, what do you see as the key changes in the publishing industry in recent years?
One of the biggest changes is the royalty income that writers and producers are now getting from the streaming platforms, which is where most music is sold these days, or streamed. And, back in the day, a songwriter could get a song on an album, like get a track on an album and make money from it. Now it has to be the single. Otherwise, you're just not getting any money. And it's a real problem. And I don't know how we're going to fix it. But publishers are working on it.
Interesting. So if it's not the lead single, it's a real problem to monetize.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Because music is free. That's a very, very big problem. Today, can you talk about what you specifically look for, both creatively and non-creatively, in a new, unknown songwriter? And how has your criteria evolved over the last decade in that particular area?
It's very important, firstly, for the songwriter-producer to be talented and prolific. They have to have a good work ethic. But most importantly, like with the songwriter-producer, publishers can take care of them without a management team if they don't have one, because not all of them do. But as a publisher, we can manage that. But if you're an artist, we really need to make sure that you have good management around you, because managers just do everything nowadays, and it's so important as an artist to have a strong management team.
So that's one of the considerations you guys take when you're looking into working with.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, we're interviewing the managers as much as we're interviewing the new potential signing, because it's a big part of it. these days.
And I can imagine you've probably passed on things because of that hasn't been in place, or maybe the people are not the right fit that you think for the artist, or...
Yeah, if I don't feel that we're on the same track and have the same vision, and that the management team can, you have to make sure that they can deliver. We that is a big consideration for us these days. Yes.
Absolutely.
Kim, how have expectations for new songwriters, artists, and producers evolved? Do they need to be more self-sufficient and proactive in creating opportunities before attracting the attention of publishers?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's very rare for somebody to just, back in the day, people would mail demos to the music companies. Like, getting our attention now, unless you're out there being proactive, is tough. It's hard for them, definitely.
Yeah, that's one of the things in terms of the criteria is, having a visibility,
Yes.
having some kind of track record where it's not just, wow, I found a talented writer, where it's faith-based. Because I come from that same world where it's faith-based. You believe based on your skills, you have faith that artist can break, but you
Yes.
also have faith that there's a market for them out there.
Yes.
And what you just said about, having the track record or somewhat of a opportunity thing before, that's really important today.
Yeah. And also, there's communities in every city, and you have to get yourself in those communities, because we often hear about a songwriter or producer through our songwriters and producers, and they'll be like, hey, you should check out this guy or girl, like, they're really good, I was in the studio with them. So you really have to get yourself out and into those communities.
We've discussed this before, but I think it's worth re-examining with you. You lead as the head of global creative at Concord Music and worldwide A&R team of 28 people, making signing decisions that differ significantly between artists and songwriters. When considering an artist or a band before they have a record deal, unlike a songwriter or producer who can contribute to multiple projects, what key factors beyond pure belief and good management need to be in place for you to move forward with this?
We need to make sure that the artist or the writer-producer is committed to their craft. That's the number one important thing, because it's hard out there. It's tough, and you've got to be willing to put in the work, the effort, and work 150% every day, just pretty much, or you can have the weekends off. But it's your work ethic is a big part of it, because if you just churning in one song every 2 months, that's not going to work for us.
Yeah, very much so. Eric and I always relate to the story that Andy Gould, I don't know, do you know Andy?
Yes, I do,
he
yes.
told that very famous story. He said there's nothing more depressing or sad in your life as a professional when you wake up and realize that the talent and the artist that you have believed in for so long, that you want it more than they do.
Yes.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, he was serious. It's heartbreaking because you realize you can't fulfill on that.
No.
You can't do those shows. You can't write those songs. And what you just said reminded me of that. That's a very important quality that often doesn't get spoken of. We assume that talented people, of course they're driven.
Yes.
And it's not always the case.
No.
So
No.
it's interesting you say that as global head of creative, you look for that.
Yes, very much so.
Kim, how important is a songwriter, producer, or artist team to you in Concord when you're considering getting into business with them?
The team, as in their management team?
Everything, just everything in general. Yeah, we kind of touched on that a little bit, but...
No, it's very, very important, because, in these times to get noticed, it's so hard. And, back in the day, you'd take the song to radio, you'd get on MTV, you'd tour, you'd get some great press, and if it was, if you got traction, you were off. Now, half the time it's like, where do you even start?
That's what I'm saying. So it must be like really hard for you guys too, as far as like trying to, we talk about attention.
Yes.
And how hard that is to get.
From
and you're
people.
talking about that people have to be hustling. Now they really got to be hustling.
Yes, a lot. And and they have to be professionals, like I feel sorry for a lot of artists where all of a sudden they've got to be, making TikTok videos and whatever, and it's like
Social media.
it's a lot. It's a lot. And they have to become professionals at just doing that.
Right.
Let alone, making the music.
Hey, Insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured conversation. Stay tuned because we've got so much value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Eric, as an artist, what do you find are the most challenging aspects to a music career, especially when you're starting out?
Well, I think one of the first things is just trying to get the direction of who you are as an artist, where you want to go, where you want to be. And, we've talked about it on the show a lot. Who is your target audience? Who you are? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What do you think would resonate with an audience? And so those are some of the things that I would feel being a new artist. Obviously, what I know now is different because I know these things, but for people that are out there like our audience that don't have necessarily any direction to go would be the first things that I would start off with.
And having the songs that
Absolutely.
incorporate those elements that you're speaking of into it. That's so important today.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we started MUBUTV and why we started this new consulting service that we're offering to all of our insiders out there, because that is another one of the big things. I mean, that is the big thing, is like having the great songs. That's what it really starts off. Our friend Don Grierson always said, it always starts with a great song. So that's probably, besides putting together what your audience and what your target audience is the single most important thing. Where are your songs at currently today? Are you collaborating with people? Are you trying to go out to networking events where you can connect with other songwriters and stuff like that? So
yeah, and what are your strengths?
Exactly.
Are you a strong lyric writer? Are you a strong melody writer? Are you a strong musician, a player?
Right.
And it's really important to get really strong clarity on those issues before proceeding.
I totally agree, Rich. And, with our consulting services, we offer a myriad of different packages and we've made it super affordable for everybody. So, if you guys are interested out there in connecting with us on a coaching call, you can visit book.mubutv.com and start off with a free 15-minute discovery call.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We start with an initial 15-minute call where we can get a sense of who you are, what are the issues that you specifically have, right, and want to work on.
Exactly.
And we can go from there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we tailor everything to your needs. It's not like a cookie cutter thing. We kind of really want to get to know who you are as an artist, where you at today, what's the snapshot of you as an artist today, and then start trying to craft something that's tailor-made for you. So again, if you're interested, visit us at book.mubutv.com for your 15-minute discovery call.
Hi, this is Dave Wallace, A&R from the Mushroom Group and Futures Music Group. Are you an insider? I am. Subscribe now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, bringing attention to themselves. I mean, and it goes back to the earlier point you made about, they need to be motivated, they need to be getting cuts, they need to be building relationships and getting into those rooms even prior to getting onto your radar at Concord.
Yes.
That's a very, very important part of it.
Yes.
No,
absolutely.
I want to talk about another aspect. Looking back on your early career, you have spoken about the lack of female representation in the industry. And yet in a recent interview with Michael Parisi, you noted that, quote, female representation in publishing, particularly on the creative side, is far stronger than at labels. My question to you, Kim, is why do you think that publishing has progressed further in this regard? And what steps do you believe are still necessary to achieve greater gender parity across the industry?
I think I always say, publishing is the nice game. It can be quite cutthroat at labels because everybody wants to sign the next big thing and, they compete with each other, whereas publishing, it's the long game, not the short game. And I don't know why females have lean towards publishing.
Thrive through that part of the industry.
But one of my old bosses, a wonderful gentleman called Chris Murphy, who managed In Excess, who I worked with, and he was the one that got me into music publishing, and he wanted to set up an independent publishing company in Australia, and he wanted me to go run it, and I'm like, no way, boring, I'm staying in management. And he said to me, very wise words, he's like, Kim, when you're in your 50s, do you still want to be out on the road touring and, having to be on call 24 hours a day, blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, no. And he went, well, go and learn publishing because you can grow old gracefully, that business. And he was absolutely right. And one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
Yeah, and that's been a big mandate of ours here at MUBUTV because we're always trying to get more female representation on the show. And we find that is very true what you're saying, that they're thriving more in publishing, but not in the other areas. And we're trying to get more of those people on the show.
And it was interesting. We held, because it was International Women's Day last Saturday,
right?
We held in London an all-female writer-producer camp. And it was just so lovely. Like on the last day of the camp, we had a dinner with all of the girls that participated. And the love in that room was just so heartwarming because they're all like him. Just the dynamic by just being in the studio with just females was huge. And, and one thing I was saying, the one thing we're still lacking is female producers, which bothers me. And I can't pinpoint why that is, but there's still a shortage of great female producers.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you have plenty of great female songwriters.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Out there, in all genres.
Yes.
And you just wonder. I mean, is that? Yeah, like what is that about? Is that an artist issue? Is that an A&R issue?
I think it takes a special person too that has a love for that with tinkering and getting sounds.
It
takes a unique
talent.
There's a few of them out there, but I agree there's not enough, and I don't know what the correlation of that is. Either you have to fall in love with that from when you're born and want to fool with sounds and tinkering and try to, at least with the producers that we've talked about, it's always that we've had on the show have always been something I was tinkering on my my dad's radio and wondering how this sound came together.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is that, and I'm wondering, what would create more of that.
Well, I also wonder whether it's been, and this is changing the environment because, the producer pretty much lives in a studio.
Yes.
Right.
And it's a very male-dominated studio usually. But there is a change coming there. And also, producers can start out at home in their bedrooms now.
Exactly.
So I just wonder whether we'll start seeing more come through now. I'm keeping an eye, and we're all looking out for them because I want to support them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kim, as someone who's been on the front lines of this business for a long time, what do you feel holds artists back from success in their careers?
There's a lot of reasons. I mean, I know one just from working with, when I was running a label and working with artists, a lot of them didn't want the success. Like they didn't want to go commercial. Like you'd hear a song and you're like, oh my God, I can hear that on radio. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to release it. And I'm like, what?
Wow. Yes, that's more common than people realize. I'm so glad you said that because that is far more common than people realize. Yeah,
very much so. And like, I won't name names, but there was a big US act who just had a massive hit and they didn't put the single on the album.
Wow.
It's just like, well, that's not smart. So there's that. There's also, the work ethic, which is a big part of it. You want to be a great artist, you've got to be out there touring and, doing all the social media and promoting yourself. And that's a lot. Like that can be like 24 hours a day if you're not careful. So, making sure you're doing all of that. But I think they're probably two of the key. There are other things, but they're two of the key things that I see.
The early years of an artist or a songwriter's career can be the most challenging, often requiring them to navigate a 3 to 5 year period before becoming financially sustainable. What do you see as the biggest obstacles during this phase? And what concrete steps should they and the industry be taking to better support and guide emerging talent toward long-term success in this area? And I know it's something that you've spoken about before, this particular issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking when you're working with a creative, talented person who has to go and work in a coffee shop to support themselves and not be able to dedicate, 150% of their time on their craft. Doing a publishing deal is good for that to help alleviate that financial pressure if you get a decent enough deal. And we look at how we structure our deals so that, they do have a steady income for at least 3 years. Like we try to structure it that way so it's not all, spent up front. And, I also think that the industry should be supporting managers more because they also are starving if they don't have a big roster and,
right.
If there was some more financial help for managers, I think is very important.
And how do you think something like that would come about? Is that some of, because one of the things that we've talked about is countries like Australia, you guys have consortiums that are in the government that help fund and help
Yes.
that. We don't have that here in the States.
And the UK has that as well.
And the UK has that as well. And so how do you see that kind of working, like what you're talking about, helping to fund managers? How would you see something like that structured?
Well, I think it would probably have to come from the industry. It's my guess, because, trying to get through to your government would be a nightmare.
Yeah. Yes.
But, if if the industry as a whole could come together and just put each year, a chunk of money aside that, the management consortium, the MMFs can run for them and,
Okay.
Because that all then helps the artist, because the managers are out there, drumming up business for them.
Right.
So that helps
Keeps
the artists.
and it keeps the manager afloat
keeps
too.
the food chain going.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. A great idea. I wanted to ask you, throughout your life, have there been any books or films or documentaries, anything that have really inspired you professionally speaking that you can share with our audience?
I've read over the years a lot of biographies like David Geffen's and Walter Yetnikoff's Howling at the Moon.
Howling at the Moon.
Great,
That was a great
great
one.
book.
David Ritz. Yeah.
And there was one called Hit and Run, wasn't there?
Years ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I used to be obsessed with reading autobiographies, and I think every person in the industry should read some of those greats, because we're just not breeding wonderful people like that anymore, are we?
Right.
Real characters.
Yeah.
Great documentary that if you get a chance to see, it's called The House That Ahmet Built.
Oh, I'd love to see
it's
that.
It's 2 hours and 11 minutes. It's all about Atlantic Records.
Wow.
And from the very beginning to right up until the time he died. And they point out very poignantly that, he died through a fall backstage at a Rolling Stones concert. And they were saying, like, if Ahmet designed it himself, he couldn't have designed a better way to go than doing what he truly loved with people he truly loved.
No, exactly.
He slipped and fell backstage and he never regained consciousness.
Yeah.
And, it was in 2006 or 7, but the documentary ends there. But if you're a student of the business, which I know you are, you would love that. It's called The House That Ahmet Built. You can find it on DVD. It's great documentary if you love those.
I will definitely find that, because I lived in New York in the late 90s, and Ahmet was out as many nights as I was out, and at small dingy gigs, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Kim, what advice do you have for those who are committed to building a career as a songwriter, producer, or artist today?
Just to not lose faith in your talent and not be distracted by you stick to what you feel comfortable with, and don't give up, and just work.
So stay focused, stay committed.
Yes, very much so.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Kim, we want to thank you so much for coming
thank you,
by
Kim.
and doing this. This has really been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And seeing you and doing the panel with you was a real joy.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. Thank you, Rich.
I appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you. We both do. Whew. Such great insight.
Yeah.
Man, I am so glad that we had this conversation with Kim.
Me too.
That there's so much wisdom there. So much wisdom. And, again, she, some of the things that she talked about, throughout the conversation, I love the thing when she was speaking to artists and to songwriters that, that there's a whole community out there in every city, and that you have to get yourself into those communities, because often this is how the publishing community hears about you. They hear about you through other writers. They hear about you through other producers. They hear about you through people in the community that they're doing business with every single day. And this is important. In other words, this is not a business that exists in a vacuum or in your bedroom. And if you're not in a city necessarily where, there's a lot of other writers, get online, get on with the songwriting communities that are out there, build those relationships. This is all possible to do today with technology, much more so than it ever was 5-10 years ago. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other areas that we've talked about a lot on this show is about work ethic. And, she talks about, and I quote, "It's very important, firstly, for the songwriter producer to be talented and prolific. They have to have a great work ethic, but most importantly, like with the songwriter producer, publishers can take care of themselves without a management team if they don't have one, because not all of them do. But as a publisher, we can manage that. But if you're an artist, we really need to make sure that you have a good management team around you, because managers just do everything nowadays. And it's so important as an artist to have a strong management team. And, we've talked about that so much, you and I, Rich, on the show and just in private, about how important it is to have that team assembled when the time is right and when those pieces start, appearing and you start putting the pieces together.
Absolutely. And I think, again, this is part of that same philosophy that she was talking about, that this is a career. This is this is a life. This is something that you have to be committed to. And there are more elements to it than just your talent. So, get involved, get committed. If this is to be your life, and that's really always the decision, isn't it? As Ari Herstand said, the first thing you have to do is you have to define what success is for you. And if this is to be your career, if this is to be your life, then there are certain things, and it's more doable today than it ever has been in the past.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Rich Ezra and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.